Hello and welcome to today's class training session. So I'm just gonna give us a few more minutes. We've still got a couple of people coming in. I'm just kind of wasting a couple of seconds here, just in case anyone still needs to join audio or anything like that. Okay, all right, now. Okay. Before we do begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are currently on lands that have been inhabited by humans for at least the last 40,000 years. I'm currently on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I myself have connection to the lands of the Awabakal people, although those two nations are just one tiny part of a vast continent and a large collection of islands that surround it. All of the First Nations peoples of these lands deserve our respects, and I'd like to take this chance to pay those respects now. I'd like to make special mention of elders, whether they be past, present, or emerging, and I'd like to note that these lands were never ceded and that sovereignty has never been extinguished. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. So this software won't allow you to unmute yourself. So if you do have any questions for us today, please submit them to us through the control panel if you could submit them to us in the questions section of your control panel. We'll do our best to answer your questions. We have Alex Aridi with us today, who's facilitating the session, and we'll be keeping an eye on your questions. This session is also being recorded. Just one tiny correction here before we start. The email we sent out stated that this session would be 30 minutes, but it's more likely that it will be closer to 60 minutes. We hope that won't cause any problems for anyone. We will put the video of the recording of this session on our website probably later in the week. There is also another video of another session we did earlier in the year already on our website if you want to watch the second half of that one if you have to leave today. Okay, so welcome to class training. My name is Samuel Martin. I'll be your presenter today, and today we're doing the first half of a set of sessions. Today we're doing intake and triage, and these sessions are for general users and new users of class. We often do a really big session, but it runs for a couple of hours and it's pretty full on. We're kind of doing a bit of a shorter session and going into a bit of more detail on how a couple of our different systems in class work today. Next week we'll be having a bit more of an in-depth look at clients, services, and actions. Okay. So let's get started. Let's have a look at a little overview of today's session. So we're going to have a look at new intake. So this is how intake is the term we use to describe how we enter new clients into our system, new services into our system, or services for existing clients into class. And we'll have a look at two different ways to do that, to do intake. Then we'll have a look at the triage system, and then there'll be a couple of handy hints and tips at the end. Okay, so in terms of new intake, so this is one of the two processes that we will show you today. And this is the one that CLCs Australia recommends. And the reason for that is step 3 of this process. The conflict check. So that is automatically a part of this process. So the other one that we'll discuss today, which is what we call alternate intake, there's no automatic conflict check as part of that system. You need to remember to do your conflict checking yourself if you're using alternate intake. Today we're starting with new intake. So this could be a 3, a 4, or a 5-step process depending on what kind of service you're entering into class. So we'll go and have a look at it now. Actually, I'll just quickly explain that. For things like information referral and triage services, this is most likely to be a 3-step process. For something like a legal advice, it might end up being a 4-step process. If you're entering something that's more of a representation service, that's more likely to be the full 5-step process. Okay, let's flick over to class and we will have a look at what I'm talking about. Okay, here's class. So to start with the new intake process, you simply click New Intake in the top left there. That's the secondary navigation menu, the primary one being in the bottom left of the screen. Excuse me. Okay, so we'll just click on New Intake to start a brand new one. Okay. All right, so once we click there, we see that we've got, it says right here, we're doing an intake and we're at step 1. Okay, so something fairly obvious comes up right away as soon as we do that. Highlighted there in a very pretty pink is the service type field. So obviously we're going to need to tell class what type of service we're entering. So I can demonstrate the full 5-step process, I might do something like a representation service. Sorry about flicking around so quickly. You've probably seen this before though. For anyone who hasn't, these are all the different types of services that we can enter into class. An information, a referral, a legal advice, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones, a legal task. So I might do something like an other representation today for no specific reason. You can change the date of service if you want. There's a couple of handy little hints here. We've got our little date picker there, or you could type it if you want. You could do something like, I'm giving away my age here, but never mind that. And you can just enter in the date that way, or you can just use the date picker and just pick a date if you like. If you do want to select today's date, another little handy little tip is that we've got this little button there. You can just click that and that will set the date to whatever the date currently is. The next thing we see that's required is our funding category. We'll need to enter that. This gets complex, very complex. I don't work in a centre. I actually never have, so I don't know a lot about funding categories. You would probably know more about that than me, about which funding categories you're supposed to be selecting. I'm just going to choose the one at the top there today, just for demonstration purposes. The next one we get, the next field down is our problem type. I'm just going to demonstrate this just really quickly, because this is a bit, what's the word? A bit difficult sometimes. We've got a lot of problem types and it can be a bit tricky to figure out which one to select. So a couple of little tips here is that you can search, say you know that the problem that you're helping your client with might be something to do with family law. You could do a search in there for family law and that will remove any of the criminal or civil law problem types. And from there, you could distill it down further by saying this has something to do with parenting arrangements. Let's just select that, parenting. We'll do a search in there, and that will drop down the number of options that we've got further. Another little tip about problem types here is that you can select as many as you like, and we suggest that you do exactly that. Our recommendation is that you select every single problem type for the service you're entering that is relevant to the service. So if this has to do with, let's just say, just hypothetically about a child residency and its parenting plan, the specific issues, it's taking a child interstate, which I don't think you will do at this time, but never mind that. You could select all those problem types and then you just simply click here to select those records and that would select those as your problem types. I will skip some of these next fields. The outreach one is if you're delivering this service from an outreach location like a prison or something like that. The office location, if that's not auto set or if you want to change it, you can do that. We'll say it's central office. And then we get down to fields that it's really down to your discretion to use. If you need to use any of these fields, you can. The keywords field I'll come back to after describing the assign to field. So if you want to assign this service to a solicitor, or whoever it is. This may be a non-legal service, it may be a counsellor or someone like that. You absolutely can do that. I'm going to assign this one just for demonstration purposes to myself. I'll select that one, and I just want to test, can I select? I can. So there you go. You can select, I thought so. You can select several people to assign a service to. As we can see here, this created by field is required and it's not filled out. It may be auto-filled in your instance of class. As we can see here, it's not, so you would need to go in and select who is creating this service. So now I've got intake notes, and I'm going to do this just really quickly, and I will show you where they live later on. Okay, so that's the first half of that page. The second half of this page is about your client, the details about the client that you're entering this service in for. So the first thing we need to do is select the client type, and there's only a few options there. It's either an individual or an organization, or it's a government body or agency, or you can select other if you like. The most common one selected is individual. So what you should then do is enter that client's name. I'm just going to make up a name here. That will do. If your client has an other name, you can put that in there. Now, the date of birth type and then the date of birth field. As we can see here, the date of birth field is required. This little red symbol here is showing us that. If you don't have a date of birth for your client, for whatever reason, that's not a problem. To remove this date of birth field, you simply select the either unknown or not stated, and that will remove that date of birth field, and you don't need to worry about it. There's an estimate if you want to put in an estimated date of birth. I'm just going to select that just to get rid of it. Keywords, I did mention this before. Your centre may have a policy around keywords. I would recommend asking. You can, I think the demonstration we usually give is that this client always wears a blue tie when they come to see us. So you can use keywords for something like that. It can be whatever you want. Again, your centre may have a policy around keywords. You can enter keywords for the service itself and keywords for the client. This clearly being a pretty bad demonstration, you would probably put this keyword of this client always wears a blue tie in the client keywords, not the service keywords. Anyway, let's move on. So we've got these fields here for your client, the mobile, your phone numbers, all of these fields fill out any and all of those that you like. You've got the client's address here. Okay, you can do something, if you enter an address, I'm just going to enter one really quickly. Where is it? There's that. Once you enter an address, what you can do is click on this button here to check on Google Maps if that is a real address, if it actually exists, or if the client has given you some dummy information for any reason. That building there in that photo looks very familiar to me. Never mind that though. Let's move on. Referral details. If you're doing a referral, so what are we doing? An other representation service. If in part of this service you're actually referring the client on as well, you can enter those details there. If you're referring the client to someone else for part of the service that your centre can't provide, or they need extra services on top of the service that you're delivering, and someone else is going to do those, then you would fill in the referral details. Okay, that's probably enough on step one of the process. Once you've filled in everything you need to, you simply click on step 2, additional parties, to move through to the next step of the process. And we see here that we have moved through to step 2 of intake, new intake process, and this is managing additional parties. As you can see, there are none yet. So to add an additional party for this service, you would simply click add party. If there aren't any, you can simply click through to intake step 3. I'll quickly show you how to add an other party or an additional party. Once you click Add Party, it'll ask you for the type, and the types are, it's an other party, so that would be the person who is either the defendant or the prosecutor. They're the other people in the case or the matter. This might be a related party, which would be a person who's related to your client, and we've got a couple of bits of dummy data here. Please ignore those. This is probably a good chance to stop and just mention that I'm in the CLC's Australia instance of class today, and we don't actually have any clients, so none of the data you're seeing today is confidential information. It's all dummy data, so don't worry about seeing anything you're not supposed to. I'm actually going to select related party here, and I'll show you a piece of functionality we've got in class in just a minute. The person type, okay, just like we saw before. Other types of body corporate is what it could be. I'm just going to select that this is an individual. Then you would fill in their names, their date of births and everything, all of the information you have for them, you would fill in there, fill in their address, and once you're done, you've got a couple of options here. You can save it. We've got a couple of better options than that though. You can save and close this and then you can move on. But if you've got a bunch of these to fill in at once, say you need to enter, say you've got a client and the client has several children and the service you're delivering it relates to that person's children, and you need to enter every one of those children as additional parties. What you could do is fill in the details for the eldest child or the youngest child, however you want to do it, and then click Save and New. This will give you a brand new one. You can fill in the next one, and you can keep going until you've done them all, and then once you're done, then you could click Save and Close. That's probably not going to work for me. I'll just do this really quickly. Okay, that should do. And once you're done, you click Save and Close, and here are your related parties. Now, once you do enter in a related party, you can do a conflict check for them at this time, if you like. You would simply click that there. I didn't enter a name. If you entered a name in there, it would carry across here. I'll just put in, that's the first name. I'll just put in something fairly common in the last name field and click search. That would do a conflict search for you, and you can then manage your conflicts that way. I'm coming back to conflict checks in just a minute, so I might just close this. I'm just demonstrating there that you can conflict check your additional parties at this stage of the process. Okay, I'm going to move on to intake step 3 there, as I think that's where we're at. So we are coming back to the conflict check very quickly. So this is how we do a conflict check, and this is step 3 of the new intake process. Okay, so the name that I entered at step 1 of the process has carried across into these fields in this conflict check screen, and I can now just click search, and that will bring up any results that we have, and we have no data to display, so there's clearly no clients in our system with this name, which means that we have no conflict. In which case, I can say that this is a new client. I'll just demonstrate again, just really quickly. I don't know why I capitalized that, but never mind that. So this is our client, and we can say that's our client there, and we can say it's an existing client, and this will add the service that we're adding to that client. So that is how we would add a new service to an existing client using the new intake process. I'm gonna just remove that. I'll remove this, and I'm just going to say, just for demonstration purposes, that we're entering a new client. Excuse me. There, I just this button here, conflict found, and that distracted me. I will explain it. If you click that button, you're telling this system that there's a conflict. And it should be pretty obvious to all of us that we can't deliver services to clients if there is a conflict. So if you do click that button, you will only be able to enter this service as an information or a referral service. If you click that button, all the other service types won't be available to this service. Okay, I'm going to click new client. We're saying this is a new client, and it's going to ask us for a result of the conflict check that we did. Here's our result types, and we have several options. We can say there's a conflict found, which means we can only do an information or a referral service. We could say it's an existing client or a new client. We can say there's no conflict, a possible conflict, and then if we say there's a possible conflict, we can say how we're going to manage that conflict in the notes. I don't really know what that is. I'm going to say this is a new client, and I'm just going to click Save and Close to record the result of that conflict check. Once I've done that, this will carry me across to step 4 of the intake process. I'll just stop there and let you know that if you're doing an information, a referral, or a triage service, this is all you have to do. You don't have to do steps 4 and 5. That will actually kick out and you're done. I'm going to demonstrate steps 4 and 5 for you though. Okay, so at intake step 4, and it doesn't really say it there, but this is client details. Intake step 4 is client details, which I'm pretty sure I have on my slide. Step 4 is client details. So here we are at the client screen, and we can enter whatever details we want of our client here. I'm really just clicking around randomly there. This is basically what we do. We enter in details for our client, and once we're done with that, we move through to step 5 of the intake process, which is, I'll come back to that. I just want to demonstrate additional details. So if you click on this tab here, additional details, so here's the client screen and here's the additional details. As you can see in here, the address that we listed for this client at step 1, I think it was, is listed there, and the name is listed there as well. We can, in here, in the additional details tab, we can make changes to anything that we've already set up in here. And we can also add new information, new data for our client. Let's just say we wanted to enter the email address that we've got for the client. We didn't enter it before. We could enter it now by simply clicking new. We could enter a phone number. I'm going to enter a new name for this client, and this will say additional names. I'm going to enter an additional name for this client just so I can demonstrate just how this works. Let's just say I made a typo, which I may well have. I'll just go, because that's a very common name, that one. There we go. All right, so I made a typo when I was setting up this new client that we've got. So now I'm just correcting that is what I'm doing. And so we've got this little button here, primary. It's a checkbox really. If you tick that checkbox, this will make these details the primary details of the client. So the name that we gave before will become secondary details. They'll still be listed there, so we can see what changes were made in the system, but this will be the details of this client, the primary details of this client. And you could set up a bunch at once if you wanted to, if your client has multiple phone numbers, email addresses, or something like that. Okay, I'm going to click back to the client tab, and I'm going to click save. Once I do that, that will end step 4 of the intake process and move us through to step 5. Except I always forget to do this. Apologies for that. There may be some, no, there's not. Okay, I'm going to click save. Right, I missed the required fields. We have a lot of demonstration fields and stuff in our instance of class. Please ignore those today. Your system will probably look a little bit different. Okay, so now we're coming across to step 5 of the intake process. And this is for this the details for the service. And we probably entered some of the details of this service at step 1. This is where we can enter more details for this service. And once this page opens, we can see that this service that we've just entered is highlighted another very pretty color, this green color. excuse me, if you do see any services that are highlighted in this green, that means that that service requires attention. So you should probably open it up and have a look at what it needs. The way to open the services is simply just to click on the link in the service ID column, and that will open the service for you. As we're going to see, once this loads, this will show us which required fields we haven't filled out, and that will be the reason why this service needed attention. And here are a couple of them here. I'm just going to click around really randomly, and that will do. There's another required field, and I think there's one here as well. Again, more dummy fields that we have in our system. Please ignore those again. Okay. And once you've filled out all of the required information in the service screen, you can click Save or Save and Close, and that will save this service in the system for you. You're done. You've entered that service into the system, and that ends the 5-step process for new intake. Now, I did say there were a couple of things I was going to show you, so I will do that. If you're looking for conflict checks, let me open that service again, and I'll show you where to find the records for conflict checks. If you're ever looking for, if you're, has this client been conflict checked? Was a conflict check ever done? You can see that. I'm trying to click back. So here we've got a client record open here, and if you come across and click on the Client Services tab, across here there's a column to view the conflicts. If you click on that, that will show you the conflict checks that were done for this service. And we can see here, these are the dates and times when this was entered and created and conflict checked. Some of the details, there's no notes for this one. And here's the result of the conflict that we did. Click there, it will probably give us some more information about it, and we could enter notes if we wanted to. I'll just close that because that's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so I did click there, and that will open this service page here. Now, there's another way to view the conflicts. On this page right here, I won't scroll. I'll just go down here and across here, and we've got this link here, and click that, and that will show us the conflict checks that were done on this service as well. Okay, now I did say earlier I would show you where the intake notes are kept. So in the service screen, here's the service details that we're looking at. If you come across the Actions tab and click on one, we'll find the intake notes that I entered at step 1 of the intake process in there. And that's where they live. We're having a deeper look at Actions next week, so come back to hear more about Actions. As for today, we might move on because that is the full 5-step intake process. I'm just checking. I'm not seeing his questions here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. That's great. All right, I'm going to move on. Alternate intake. Okay, so this is the other way to do what we just saw. There are some centers who get this a little bit confused, and I can understand that. So there are 2 separate systems, and we've got terminology for both of them. That system we just saw is the new intake system, and the one I'm going to demonstrate now, it's called the alternate intake system, and some centers do use this system. It's not officially recommended by CLCs Australia. As I was saying before, that's because you do need to remember to do your conflict checking yourself rather than it being an automatic part of the process. But you can use this, and your center may be using it. So I will demonstrate this. Okay, let's flick back to class, and I'm just going to close these tabs. We're done with those. Okay, so now we want to start a new service. Let's do the same demonstration. A new service for an existing client using the alternate intake method. What you would do is you would start at Search Clients. Once you're in Search Clients, what you can do, instead of actually looking for a client, actually you could do that. what was the client I just entered was this. You could search for a client. Let's just say, no, that's not this person. This is a different person. It looks like Matt. And sorry, I've actually done this wrong myself. What you should start with is a conflict check. Oops, that was a right click. There we go. So you should start with a conflict check. See if this client is in the system. Okay, so if the client is in the system, then you would simply open the client record and add a new service to that client. I'm going to demonstrate adding a new client in just to demonstrate the entire system up. Once you're in here, you can click through the client services and add a new service for the client if it's in the existing client. Okay, so we're actually in the conflict search screen. I should actually stop and demonstrate the conflict search screen because there's a couple of interesting things about it. So we've actually got two ways to search. So this is the search and filter functionality that we've got in class. And you'll see this in quite a lot of places in class, and I'll just demonstrate how it works. So we've got this black line here. Technically, I think it's a box, but whatever. We call it a black line, the black line. And so we say that we've got above the line and below the line. And above the line is searching and below the line is filtering. And I'll demonstrate that now using something I did before. Okay, so if we search for this really common name, we're probably going to get a lot of results. And if you want to know how many results you've got in your search, you look in the bottom left of the screen. I don't know if you can see that, it's quite small. But down in the bottom there, it says page 1 of 1 and 37 items. So we've got 37 results in this search for Smith. Okay. Now this search function is actually quite powerful. It'll search this client's name is not Smith, it's Smithy. So it brings up anything that contains what you're searching for. Now here's my client here, my demonstration of another piece of functionality in class. We can see this client here. The name is not Smith. This client's name is Jimbo Smimbo. So we want to ask, how did this client end up in these search results? So if you have a look at additional names, as I was saying before, you can change the name of your client. If your client changes their name, you can change it in class to reflect that or to record that. And if you do that, then these names will turn up in your conflict check searches as well. And once we've done a search, say we get hundreds of results and we want to filter it down, you can do that. You could, let me scroll across. Once I scroll across, we can see down here in our search results, these first 4 columns stay where they are and the rest scroll across. So if we wanted to filter, so we wanted to say we wanted to search for only clients that are in the state we're in. I know this is probably not a great demonstration, but it's just a demonstration of how the system works. That has reduced our search results to 9. So we've done a search and then we've filtered that search as well. So that's our conflict search and filter. Okay, let me go back and demonstrate the alternate intake process now. What you would do is come over to search clients to enter in a new client into your system. It probably won't look like this. I seem to have done a search for nothing, so it's brought up every client we've got in our system. Anyway, to enter a new client, you simply click on New, and once you do, you will get a blank screen for a client record. I'm going to ignore that. So this is what we've got. We've got a new screen for client details. Your client ID is going to be auto-generated. You don't really want to change that. This is going to enter it in as a full client. I'm just going to skip past that. There are ways to enter in clients as non-clients if you wanted to. I might come back to that later. Okay. As you can see, the client type is required. I'm just going to again select an individual, and as you can see, that has changed the screen quite a bit. Again, we're going to enter our client's name. I'm going to go like so. All right. And again, we've got the same fields we've seen already. I'll skip past this because we have seen this. These notes, I'm not sure where they live. Once you, I might just and see what happens when I do that. Okay, all right. So once you've done that, you can click Save and Close if you want to, but that's not going to enter a service into your client record. So you might want to just click Save once you've entered all the information in for your client, and I've missed the required fields again. All right. I'm just saving that and waiting for it to record. Okay, and that's going to open up our new client record for us. So our client's now entered into the system. Our client has a client ID. Okay, so once we've entered our client, we can simply click across to client services, and this will be blank or it'll be empty. And we can simply click New to create a new service for our client. I'm going to do this really quickly to demonstrate for you. I'm going to enter in, it's just a legal advice, and that will change all the different screens we've got, and I'm just going to enter stuff in really quickly, and that will do. All right, so I've just realized I've kind of been talking for a while already, so I'm kind of trying to run through some of this a bit quicker. Okay, all right. Once you enter in everything, you simply click Save. Oh, I actually do want to do this because I want to demonstrate something else. All right, just give me a moment to enter in all the required fields. Hopefully that will work. It looks like it will. Okay, that's great. So that's pretty much the alternate intake system. Again, it's not the recommended system to use by CLCs Australia, but it is there and available for you to use if you would like. One other little piece of information about, this is not really about the alternate intake system. This is just another way to enter a service into class. So what we have is a copy service feature, and I'm just going to demonstrate that really quickly because this is another way to enter or intake a service into class. So we'll go with the idea, the demonstration that that we've got a client and they have regular appointments with us, whether that be once a week, once a month, whatever it is. What we can do is we can just copy the service that we entered into class for them last time. So here's a service that that we delivered to the client last time. It was a legal advice. It was done today, but no, ignore that. What we can do is simply select that service and then click this copy button. Now this is going to give us a little warning message here. It says by proceeding, you'll be creating a new service with the same details and additional parties. This process cannot be reverted. Do you want to continue? Now, just so you know, none of that's actually really true. Some of it is, but kind of not. You do get a new service with some of the details, additional parties are carried across. It says here the process can't be reverted, but you could always go in and delete the service if you wanted to. Anyway, what you probably want to do is simply click yes to say, yes, you do want to continue. So once we do that, there we go. We've got our new service. So that service that we entered in before has now been copied. And as you can see, it's highlighted in green, meaning that needs some attention. And if you are copying services, then there's a couple of things to look out for. You do need to be a little bit careful when copying services, and I'll show you why right now. I'll open that service and show you a couple of the bits of information that aren't copied across, and I'll let you know why they're not. It's fairly self-explanatory. It's not complex stuff. Okay, so we've got kind of most of the details are copied across. Let's have a look at the additional parties. Hopefully this won't take too long. There's none there, never mind that. Okay, most of the details are copied across. If I have a look down here, I can see the created by is not filled in. So that other service will have a record for who created it. This one does not, and the reason for that is pretty simple. the person copying this service may not be the person who created the previous service. So that information is very much intentionally not copied across. So you will need to go in there and select who is creating this service. And the assign to field is also left blank. So if you do need to assign this service to someone, you'll probably need to fill that in as well. And then probably just keep an eye out. As I was saying before, you probably want to be a bit careful when copying services. You probably want to keep an eye out for any fields that you do need to fill in. Okay, that is copying services. All right, so that's pretty much the alternate intake service, the alternate intake process, and a little bit of extra information on copying services there as well. I'm still not seeing any questions. That's probably a good sign, hopefully. All right, let's see what else. The triage system. All right, let's go and have a quick look at the triage system and how this works. Your center will probably have a policy on whether this is used or not. Again, I recommend asking if you use this system or not. Let's go and have a look at how it works. I'm just going to close a few things here. Okay, so as we can see before, triage can only be done through new intake. I'll show you how to create one, how to convert one, and then I'll show you how to add data to a triage service after you've saved it. Okay, so we click on new intake to create a triage service. And I just realized I haven't really explained what a triage service is. I think the kind of the explanation of it is that triage is the waiting room. So if you've got a client who calls up and says, I'd like to speak to a solicitor about something, and you ask them, okay, what is this about? And they don't want to talk to you about it. They only want to talk to the solicitor about it. This is a bit of a general sort of explanation. You can enter a service for them into triage, and then once they speak to their solicitor and then you know what it's all about, you can go in, find that service. You can change the service type because now you know. We did a legal advice service for the client, or no, this is going to be a service that we're going to have to represent the client in, or a matter that we're going to have to represent the client in. Then you can go and change your triage service to whatever kind of service it is and work from there. When you are entering a service into triage, as I was saying, you click new intake, and the service type here, this is how you do it. You simply select the service type of triage, and that's pretty much how you do it. I'm just going to enter one in really quickly. Okay, demo, of triage. That's good. I misspelled that word triage about 99 times out of 100. I'm just going to enter in, just clicking around really quickly here just to get some stuff in. That should about do it. Now, what I was saying previously about this being a three I guess I was kind of saying before that 3 steps of the new intake process is kind of about the minimum. I'm actually going to show you that that's not actually true. What we could do is go save and close after we fill out the required fields. No, okay. We can click save and close, and that'll just save that service into triage. So that's pretty much a 1-step process, which you can use if you like. Okay, so that's how you create a triage service. Now, going back to the example we had before, we've entered our client into the triage list, which I will show you in just a minute. So let's just pretend that our client has been in, had their appointment with their solicitor, and now we need to change this from triage to, let's just say, a legal advice. We go into the triage list by simply clicking triage over on the left there, and we find the service we need. You can search on the client name for the service you need, or however you want to do it. We've got 13, you may have a lot more than that. You could search on the open date. Look, I don't really need to right now. That's the one I just entered. That's the only one in the list with today's date. So I'm just going to open that service by clicking on the link there in the service ID column. And then once that service opens, all I have to do is change the service type to whatever it is. Once this loads, I can simply change that from triage to legal advice. Come on. All right. I can change that to whatever I want, fill in all of the details that I want, and I can just save that, and then you have converted a record from triage to something else. Okay, so I was going to demonstrate how you enter data into a client record once you've entered something into the triage list. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the triage list. Here's our triage list. If you want to enter some more like demographic data for your client, after you've put a service for them into triage, because those fields aren't available for you in intake, and you want to fill them in after you want to fill them in while you're intaking that client to triage, you can do it. You simply save the record into the triage list, and then you click there to open the service. Once the service opens, what you can do is find the client name just here towards the top, click on that. That will open the client record, and now you can enter any of the demographic data that you want for this client. You can enter all of this stuff here. Again, I'm just clicking around really randomly. It's not actually doing anything. Anyway, that is how you enter. That's how you enter data later. So if you want to enter that demographic data for your client, you absolutely can do that while you're kind of entering it into triage. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's not the worst system in the world. Okay, I might move on quickly. While we're at it, I would like to talk about data collection and reasons why it's important. And I'm kind of talking about the things we were just talking about just then, client demographic data. So the reason why I'm talking about this today is because some of this data is important. Every employee at CLCs Australia would be fully well aware, and I'm sure you probably are as well, that the community legal sector is underfunded. So we're actually making some ground there. We're actually making some improvements, and the way that happens is that one of the ways that happens is that your national peak body advocates for you to try and get more money to try and improve the sector. And one of the ways that we do that is by analysing the data that we've got in class and then presenting that to policymakers and decision makers. So some of this data is really important, and we'd like to ask you to enter it as often as you possibly can. We'd like some of these fields that I'm just about to show you to be entered 100% of the time. We know that's not realistic, but if you can try to remember to do that, to enter them as often as possible, we would appreciate that because this does help us to help you, to help the whole sector and to help the community in the long run. Okay, so we've got about 5 different fields here that we would like collected as often as possible, and there's the list there. I'll show you where to find all of these in a moment. If you want to take a screenshot of that, go ahead right now. I'll leave that up for a minute. I'm actually going to flick over pretty quickly, so if you do need a screenshot of it and I flick over before you manage to get that, let me know. Let us know in the questions section of the control panel. Speaking of which, I think I can hear Alex. Hi.
Hey Sam, sorry, I just wanted to let you know while we've got a little bit of a pause, we've had a question come through from someone who said, can I ask why the alternative intake isn't recommended? Is it only due to the conflict check side of things? Do you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, there's not a lot to expand on there. That's pretty much exactly the reason for it. The conflict check is an automatic part of the process in the new intake system, but with the alternate intake system, you do have to remember to do that yourself, and we all know that humans aren't perfect. We are all only human in the end, so that is pretty much the single reason. I can't ever remember having heard another reason why the alternate intake system is not the recommended system. So that would be, I hope that answers that question, but please let us know if it doesn't. Okay, any other
Thanks,
questions,
Sam.
Alex?
No, that's all. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Okay, excuse me. All right, let me show you where to find these fields that we would like collected as often as possible. I will flick back to class. Okay, the one at the top right there is ATSI status. We are on a service screen here, are we? No, sorry. My apologies, we are on the client screen. Okay. So we're on the client screen, and that is where you'll find the ATSI or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander status field. We would like this collected on every single client if we could. We know that it's not really reasonable to ask for all of these fields to be collected 100% of the time, but we would like to collect it as often as possible. And there's a few options there. And if this service that you're doing for this client has absolutely nothing to do with Aboriginality or Indigenous issues, anything like that, we'd probably suggest maybe using the unknown. If you don't know, if it's not relevant, you can use the unknown, not stated, or inadequately described option there. There is a blank option there that you can use if you want. We'd probably ask you to use the unknown option instead. So that's the first of them. The next three are all going to be on the service screen. So I'm going to click over here to a service page. And if we scroll down a little bit, we've got the basic details group of fields, the referral information group of fields, and then just below that, we've got the service characteristics. And as you can see in our instance of class, these three fields are required fields. They may not be in your instance of class though. So we've got the financial disadvantage indicator, family violence indicator, and homelessness status. If you could enter those, and again, we've got an unknown. It may sound a bit silly and a bit pointless to enter unknown, but it actually does help us. I can't really explain it too well because I'm not a data analyst, really. Data analysts are really pretty impressive people. They can do some really impressive stuff with this data. So it may seem a bit pointless to enter unknown on all three of these fields for all of your clients, but those data analysts that we do have at CLCs Australia, they can do some pretty impressive stuff with that if you fill in those fields. So that's why we ask for those fields to be filled out. So the last one that I'm going to show you today is right down here. We've got the service details group of screens, and below that is referral. And inside there, right at the very bottom, we've got reason for referral. Now, this is one of the most important fields in all of class. I'll just kind of move that. There we go. All right. Now, in saying that the sector is underfunded, what that means is that most centres can only afford so many solicitors. And if you have clients come in and say, I would like assistance, and you have to say to them, we don't have another single solicitor who can assist you. We are completely at capacity and cannot take on a single other client. That's some really good data for us to help us prove that the sector is underfunded. So if that is the reason why you're referring clients away, we're going to ask you to use this reason for referral field. We're going to ask you to use, where is it? It's in here somewhere. Person, that's not it. Centre does not have capacity to deliver service. And there's a couple of different options there. So there's a whole bunch of different options here for why you're referring someone. If you don't do the service they need, then please use centre does not offer the service. If there's another reason they don't meet financial eligibility guidelines for whatever the reason is, please use that reason. One of the most powerful weapons we have to prove that the sector is underfunded is this one here. The centre does not have the capacity. So if that is the reason why you're turning clients away and why you're referring clients away, then use this. The centre does not have the capacity to deliver this service. And what we do is count all of those up, and then we go to the policymakers and the decision makers and say, this is how many times we had to turn people away because we just don't have enough money. Okay, so Those are the fields we would like you to collect. Thank you for listening to my rant on that. Okay, let me show you how to get help and find documentation. So we do have documentation about all of this on our website, everything we've spoken about today. So if you want to find it, if you have a look in the top right of your screen, you got a few buttons here, and this one here, the little circle with the question mark in it, the little help button. If you click on that, that will take you across to our website, and it will open you directly to the class documentation on our website. And as I was saying, we've got information on all of the things that we've spoken about today. If we scroll down, we've got information about class, how to get help from the class help desk, and how to use documentation, all kinds of information in here. And we've got this navigation menu on the right side of the screen. So all the stuff we've talked about today will be in the user manual. We've got a whole bunch of stuff in there, including help and support. So if you're looking through the documentation and it's not telling you what you need to know, then you can get help and support. I'll come back to that. So here we are in the user manual now, and now we can have a look at conflict check, client services and actions, which we're doing that next week. And then there's a whole bunch of information about intake and triage, which are the things we have talked about today. Searching, I guess we went through that as well. So if you're trying to find something in here and you're not finding the answers you need, you can come to the class help desk for help. And there's several different ways to do that. I would recommend clicking on help and support right there in that menu if you do want to contact the class help desk, and this will detail all of the ways to contact us. There's a few little basic bits of information at the start of this page. This one here, the correct browser being Chrome. I'll just mention that quickly. Class is not really tested in any other browser other than Google Chrome. We suspect it does work reasonably well in other browsers, but we recommend Chrome. That's because we know it works in Chrome. So that's the one we recommend. Clearing your cache will fix a lot of problems. If you're using class every day and it starts to get a bit wiggy or a bit strange, clearing your cache can fix some of those problems. It'll just clean up your system, and you can start from the start. If you want to know how to do that, you simply click that link there, and that will show you how to. There's a little guide there on how to clear your cache. So if you do want to contact the help desk, here you can email the help desk. There's the email address, icthelp@clcs.org.au. If you fire off an email to that, you will get a reply from the class help desk. We also have the new class portal, which we quite like. I'm going to open it in a new tab to show you what it looks like. You can use the portal to keep track of your inquiries. We should probably change that to inquiries. Anyway, we also have a phone line. You can call us if you want, and there's the phone number if you do want to call us. If you don't get an answer, if you do call us, please do leave a voicemail. We do check all of the voicemails and we'll endeavour to respond to you every single time you leave a voicemail. As for the class portal, this is it here. Up in the top right there, you can click on there, and that will show you all the requests that you currently have with the class help desk. I'm not going to bother because I don't have any, so there's not much point in demonstrating that. Once you come to the help desk portal, you can scroll down and you can click on one of these things, whichever one is most appropriate. It might be a request for more training. I need to know more about this system. Can I get more training? It might be an enhancement or a feature request. Maybe you just need a clarification on something. Whatever it is, click on there, and that will help you set up a request on the class help desk. We actually do support a couple of other systems on the help desk. So if it's about the NAS portal or LexisNexis, you can contact us about those as well. It may not be about class, something else. It may be more to do with the sector or something else. If you have some feedback for us about anything at all, You can do that there, or maybe you just want clarification about something that is not about class. You can do that there. Click there, and it will help you set up a request on the help desk. I'm seeing there's a couple of questions here. Reports to show you how many clients were turned away due to the centre does not have capacity. Yes, you absolutely can do that. Now that I'm talking about the help desk, let me set up a help desk request for you. So we'll answer that question on the help desk for you because we are starting to run over time. So I might start wrapping things up unless we have any questions. Alex, any further questions today?
No, that's all. But if anyone is interested in Turnaway information, we have that information on our website as well. I've pasted the link in response to one of the questions in chat, but I'll also pop it in the main chat just in case anyone else wants to have a quiz.
Thank you very much, Alex. All right, that might mean we don't need to address that through the help desk. All right, okay, so thank you. Thanks for being on this session today. We really do hope these training sessions help. We know class is a big system. There's a lot of functionality in there. It can be some of it a bit tricky and not super intuitive. Anyway, thank you for your time today. I hope this did help. Thank you, Alex, as well. And thanks and bye from CLCs Australia today.
Thanks, everyone.